Welcome back to my blog, Strongest Man, where tonight I have a very special guest, pro strongwoman Cori Butler.
Ciao, homie.
Welcome back to my blog, Strongest Man, where we bring strongman into the mainstream by discussing all of the latest strongman events in the greatest analytic detail that you'll find anywhere on YouTube. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to this channel so you get notified of all of the latest videos that I release 4 times a week for your viewing pleasure. Make sure to comment below whether you agree or disagree with my videos. I love the engagement and I respond to every single comment. Now on to today's topic. Cori, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. So first of all, for people that don't know you or haven't followed your career so far, take a minute to brag about your accomplishments maybe over the past year or so.
Over the past year, Lisa, I got my pro card in 2018 at the Arnold. Since then, this last year I competed in America's Strongest Woman, which was in Savannah, Georgia, back in November, and placed second. And then recently went after world record axle clean and press at the Mammoth Pro-Am, which was in Bowling Green, Kentucky last weekend.
Awesome. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about America's Strongest Woman. It's actually my next question. So what was your experience there? Like, what were the events? What was your favorite? How do you think it went? Those sorts of things.
Sure. It was probably the most fun I've ever had at a show. The venue was great. Promoter was great. Events were great. We did a circus dumbbell for reps in 60 seconds. And then there was a basket deadlift, truck pull, Husafel carry, sandbag toss over a bar, and then a sandbag carry and load. The truck pulls are my favorite.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite event. But I did quite well on the Husafel carry. I think our weight was 280 pounds. And I went just under 200 feet.
Wow.
So that event was max distance. It wasn't a timed event, so It was max distance. So you went until you dropped it. And I think I was like a foot and a half shy of 200 feet. So I was pretty proud of that accomplishment too. That's
amazing. That's how much sidewalk I have to shovel around my house. So I know it's very far.
Right? Try doing it carrying like a 280 pound Husafel.
Yeah, I know. One of these days I'll ask for a Husafel for Christmas and we'll see what it feels like empty. Yeah. But it seems like that's a mix of sort of moving events and static events. Like, what do you prefer? What's kind of, where do you think you excel, or both?
So I tend to be a little lighter on the heavyweight scale. So I do prefer the moving events. Something I really have been working on is more of my static strength. But when you get up there with, beasts like Jessica Fithen, who can rep out 480 pounds on a basket deadlift like it's nobody's business, I tend to prefer the moving events, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get her as well. Yeah, that's interesting. So let's see. You had Husafel, you had the arm over, or the truck pull. I wanted to ask you, was it arm over arm or with a harness?
It was arm over arm. We had a platform it was a great platform that was built. So I was able to start in that kind of a standing position almost. So I had my feet on the platform, was kind of leaned back to get ready to make that initial pull. And then when they told me to go, I was able to kind of fall backwards and get that big initial pull. And then it's, I'm tall, I'm 5'11".
Okay.
So use all of that body and leg to kind of get back to the platform and push off. So.
Right. So how do you go about training for something like that? I've seen Trey Mitchell kind of pull frames up his driveway, dragging them. So do you do the same sort of training regimen for that?
I don't. Occasionally I'll be able to actually hook up to a vehicle. But I live in South Dakota. So okay. September, November, those months where you're high in that training block are pretty chilly for the most part. So it's usually a pretty heavy sled and then feet pushed against some big old dumbbells and just kind of train on the turf and hope for the best.
And rest is muscle memory, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. So kind of rewinding a little bit, tell our audience a little something interesting about your background, your roots. Yeah, just something about your background that we would find interesting.
Sure. So I was an athlete growing up in high school, so I kind of was familiar with the weight room. Didn't really start training until I'm a mom of two, and didn't really start training until after I'd had my second kid.
Okay.
Kind of started back in the gym just to get into shape. I was tired of being overweight, as most are. And one of the trainers at the gym I used to attend, he was training for a local strongman comp, was looking for somebody to train with. And I first session, and I was bit by the bug. I haven't looked back since.
I actually, I was wondering, like, as a child, did you kind of walk around lifting weird stuff? And like, is there kind of a story from childhood that you can connect to? Oh, it all makes sense now.
Not really. You know, I was kind of a tomboy. It was more riding bikes and playing with dolls than that I preferred. I did grow up bowling. I mean, does that count as throwing odd objects?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, kind of. So growing up, my story, I was an only child growing up. So, you know, I had my little bench set and whatever, but you know, you had to come up with interesting things to have fun. So I used to like putting my dad's car in neutral and pushing it up and down the driveway. So I guess that, you know, I've never been a competitive strongman, but I guess that love sort of stayed in my mind my whole life. You know, when projects pop up around the outside of the house and there's something heavy to lift and everyone else is using a wheelbarrow, I'm just picking it up. And I just find that fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I actually love about strongman is just the variety. Like, you never know what objects you're going to have to carry. I mean, I certainly only make one trip from the car when it's grocery day. So
same here. I'm actually a member of a Facebook group, Dude Dads, and there's guys on there that are like, oh, look at all these groceries I carried at once. It's like a badge of honor. So have you ever, at Mammoth, you attempted a record breaker? Have you always, I guess, looking back at America's Strongest Woman, you haven't always done singular record breaker events like that. Is that sort of a shift in your career, or do you go back and forth between a full set of events and attempting record breakers?
So this is the first record breaker I have attempted. It was kind of a timing thing. You know, there's not a lot. As female pros, we're kind of limited on shows that we have available anyway. Strongest Woman in the World was supposed to be in July and was canceled. That was supposed to be in Canada. Of course, border issues did not allow that to happen. So I was kind of looking for something to train for after America's Strongest, and came across Mammoth and saw, you know, I've never played with a Mauser block, but I'm pretty good with a continental clean and an axle press. So in August, I did a local show, I guess in Nebraska, and hit a 240. So I was like, let's throw the hat in and give it a shot, something to train for. I think I'm going to, well, I don't think, I'm going to, I just got an offer to compete, try to actually set the overall world record. We had a bit of an error at Mammoth. I was told that was the 250 that I hit was a world record press. And it was just a miscommunication there. There's a gal in the UK, Annabelle, who has hit 264, so 120 kilograms.
Okay.
So I reached out to Anthony and see if maybe he would entertain the idea of allowing me to try and hit that or exceed that world record. And he agreed. He was all for it. So we're going to take a spin at that again in April.
Okay.
And then beyond that, I'm really not sure. There's a pro-am, I believe, in Seattle, Washington, that's going to happen end of August that I'm interested in doing. And then kind of have to see what happens. You know, there's the Arnold that's kind of up in the air still. America's Strongest and Strongest Woman in the World again this coming year. Kind of hit or miss. We have to see what happens with this whole pandemic business, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of from a spectator's point of view, we were all under the impression it was a record as well, but it seems like you're very close. So it's, 14 pounds?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. So it seems like that seems doable.
And at Mammoth, I did get 265 cleaned twice. I just wasn't able to quite execute the press. The bar got a little out in front of me, and the second time ended up on top of my head. So,
I mean, frankly, again, from a spectator's point of view, with the 250, you had the proverbial something left in the tank. It seems. So I think you're good.
I appreciate that. That's hope.
Yeah. So what would you say kind of attracted you to Mammoth in the first place? How did it come across your desk, and like what attracted you to it?
Sure. I don't exactly remember how I came across it. If it was a Facebook find, I remember I reached out to David Waters, was promoting it, and just kind of asked some questions. And it seemed, like it would be fun, like it was a good fit. Jess and Gabby were doing record Mauser block, and then Amanda was doing sandbag. So, I met those, or Jessica I knew, Amanda and Gabby I met at America's Strongest Woman. Lovely girls, and was like, hey, something to do. It's fairly close plane ride from home. Chance to throw down and try and set a record. So
yeah. I mean, I would agree. I interviewed Gabby last night, and she's very, very nice. It was a great interview.
She's great.
Yeah, she's awesome to talk to. So what do you think of I know that David didn't do it for all the events. I think it was just the men's sandbag, but the idea that he pays out the record breaker every year until it's broken again, like, you think that's a good idea? You think that should be extended to the women? Kind of what are your thoughts around that whole process?
Yeah, I would love to see that extended to the women. I think that anytime you can get that kind of bonus for an accomplishment is a nice thing. I think we're seeing more on the women's side of that kind of leveling out a little bit. So yeah, for sure. I think that it would be nice to have that a little more even keel across the board and have some money involved with those record breakers for sure. Okay,
great. So if you were asked to return to Mammoth next year, is that something you'd consider?
I would consider it. Yeah. Especially if I was, defending my title, so to speak.
Right. Well, you're defending the people's title, right?
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I frankly think that if the communication was straight and you knew what you were shooting for, it would have been done anyway. That's my opinion. So putting that out there to the YouTube world.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
That actually leads me to another question. So this is just my lack of knowledge. Is there a distinction with women between open and pro?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's an open class doesn't necessarily have to be a pro class.
Okay.
I think it's just not a weight regulated class. I believe. I would have to check my facts on that.
Okay. Yeah, because I know David mentioned he was interviewed after the event by John Greaves at Garage Gym Life Media just very recently, a couple days ago. Yeah, and I think he mentioned that he wants to have pro women next year. So I was wondering, does that mean the open women that competed this year, or is it a different, like yourself, like a different set of women?
Yes. So you do actually have to hold a pro women's card in order to compete in a pro class. I believe that open women's distinction just means that there's no weight parameters.
I see. Okay. And then how do you attain a pro card by winning something like America's Strongest Woman?
So you have to win, I believe the winner of nationals automatically receives a pro card. And then the winner for the Arnold amateur automatically receives a pro card.
Got it. Okay.
And I don't believe on the women's side of things anyway that there are additional. I know some of the men's competitions, there are some what are called Platinum Plus shows where you can earn a pro card if you win a certain event. I don't believe that they have that option for females.
Okay. All right. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, I was just wondering, did you have a hero growing up, and kind of has that changed now?
It has a little bit. So when I was growing up, I wanted to play pro beach volleyball. So I looked up to Carrie Walsh, Misty May, and those ladies were kind of my idols. When I transitioned into Strongman, it was more, Kristen Rhodes has always been I've always admired her so much. And she's actually become somewhat of a mentor of mine. She's really good about letting me reach out and ask questions, and I consider her friend now. And same with Donna Moore. course, is an icon in this sport. There are some women that I've looked up to that I haven't had a chance to necessarily meet or get to know, like Andrea Thompson, Brittany Cornelius, who's younger than I am, but I've always been, a fan of hers and now consider her a good friend. So just the women that have been in the sport, Donna and Kristen have been in the sport for so many years and just have accomplished so much. And they're great women. Like, they're great to talk to.
So what would you say is the thing that you like most about the sport that brings you the most enjoyment?
I think it's the variety for me. So many times I think folks get lost in doing the same types of movements or the same types of training. And I really do enjoy, there's going to be certain components in each contest that you do as far as overhead and a deadlift and a moving event of some kind. But it's moving odd objects, and in what other sport can you pull a truck? So I really do think it's the variety, and then the people. The community is just super awesome.
I agree.
I don't think I've met a person that I would say an ill word about. It's just the community is great and so welcoming, and it's, you're competing with them. They're your competitors, but at the same time, I don't feel like everybody's going to sabotage you, or if you went to somebody for advice, they would certainly give it to you.
Yeah, I think there's so much cheering on of your competitors that you don't see in other sports. It's something that you notice from the inside and as from a fan's perspective as well. I think. Yeah, that's awesome. So I think that you weren't always a heavyweight, right? So do you want to tell us a little about kind of your journey through the weight classes, how you made those decisions? And
I didn't make the decision as much as my body made that decision for me. So I used to be middleweight. I used to compete middleweight. And how that came about, I took fourth, I believe, 2017 Amateur Nationals, qualified me for the Arnold in 2018. Went down to the Arnold and missed my weight cut. So I sauna'd and did the whole thing. My body got stuck at about 183 pounds, and it stayed there for a couple of hours, wasn't budging. And you have to be 180.4, I believe, is what you have to weigh in at to compete middleweight. So Miss Dion gave me the option. She said, you can watch from the sidelines or you can compete heavyweight. I wasn't, going all the way to Ohio and not competing. So I said, why not? With the full expectation that I was going to get my rear end handed to me. I had not touched any of those weights that the heavyweight class was doing. So I showed up the next day, and after 2 days of competition, I was in first place.
Wow. Amazing.
It was a shock to everyone, I'm sure, and myself included. So I went to main stage day 3, and it was pretty much, me and Jessica kind of battling back and forth, and she ended up, out on top at the end of the day. She had won her pro card already by winning amateur nationals. So my coming in second place, her already having her pro card, that awarded me my pro card.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm trying to learn how all the mechanics work, but that's interesting. Yeah. But coming in second place to someone who was already a pro must have been a good feeling for you. Absolutely.
As competitors, of course, we always want to win, and there's, things you look back on and could have gone differently and you could have done differently. But, she's a great competitor and a super strong lady. It would be silly to be upset about taking second to her, which I coincidentally took second to her at America's Strongest as well. So it seems to be something, somewhat of a recurring theme. That's how I went from middleweight to heavyweight. And, it's nice not having to do water cuts and weight cuts anymore, I can imagine. To be honest.
I can imagine, yes. So what are some new and exciting things in your future coming up?
I'm really looking forward to getting a couple more pro shows under my belt. I really want to do. I did a Strongest Woman in the World in Alaska in 2019, which was an unbelievable experience. Alaska was fantastic. We did it at the Alaska State Fair.
Okay.
So it was a really cool experience. I'm hoping, they were supposed to do it in Canada this last year, and it of course got postponed. So I'm hoping that they do that again and try to get that done up in Canada. It would be a nice little trip to take.
Yeah, for sure. I bet Alaska was very picturesque.
Oh, it was incredible. There's a couple of pictures on my Instagram of, just with the mountains. We actually did a glacier tour while we were up there.
Wow,
me and some of the
that's
girls.
great.
And yeah, it was really a lot of fun. So I really would like to hopefully get some opportunities to maybe travel a bit. It would be nice to do some international type stuff if, if the situation presented itself.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I really look forward to, there seems like the sport for women in general is starting to grow a bit. It's always been a goal of mine to go to the pro stage at the Arnold. So, maybe a couple more record breakers in my future. Yeah,
for sure. So what training tips would you give to somebody like me trying to improve my overhead pressing?
Oh, I like a strict press for overhead. It translates and floor pressing really, but something I've really had to learn is it's really a whole body lift. Like, you got to dig your feet in and squeeze your butt and brace your core. And I don't know that I always realized what an emphasis, or what a full body lift it really is and how much stability and core that takes. But I've had really good luck with strict pressing, crossing over to, I tend to do a push jerk when I overhead press, which is not necessarily the most common thing in strongman. I think a strict press, push press is a little more common. But I find that a strict press really correlates nicely to a strong overhead.
Okay, good to know. I'll try it and I will keep in touch and let you know how it's going.
Yeah, and do some floor presses and so some single arm kettlebell stuff. I work that in a couple times a week too. Okay, cool.
So what would be like maybe 2 pieces of advice you would give somebody who's looking to get into strongman or strongwoman?
Find a local comp. Depending on where you are, I mean, you've got it. Like I said, I'll bring up the community again. Reach out to somebody on Instagram, get some training tips, some ideas of how to train certain events. I honestly train out of a CrossFit gym. I don't have all of the necessary equipment, but I make it work. Find something local, go in as a novice. The weights are usually pretty decent and just have some fun. Like it really is about having fun, especially if it's something you want to stick with. But yeah, the community is great. Reach out to somebody, find a local show, get some ideas on how to train stuff you may not have, and take it away.
Sounds good to me. So why don't you take a minute to promote anything you'd like to? I don't know if you're sponsored at all or anything you want to plug.
Ragnarok Strength Equipment has been in my corner from the beginning, from when I was a little middleweight, I guess you could say. RagnarokStrengthEquipment.com. They're out of St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
He is a police officer, so they do a lot of red line, blue line type stuff. Awesome apparel, some of my favorite. Pretty much all of my lifting equipment it themselves is Cerberus.
Okay.
Great, awesome. I actually have that on. So their Cerberus USA shirt. Fantastic belts, wraps. Like I've never been happier with the sleeves and wraps and belts that I've gotten from Cerberus. They're just, Ken's awesome. He's he owns Cerberus USA, and I couldn't be happier with their equipment. End of April, I believe it's April 30th to May 2nd. Clash of the Coast, Anthony Furman Strength Collective's show is going to be going on at Hilton Head. And I know myself, Jessica Fithen is going to do I believe she's attempting a 185 record circus dumbbell, which is bananas. Naughty Stowers is going to be there she's actually going to attempt to break Gabby's middleweight world record that was just set last weekend. I believe they'll have a pro men's lineup. I know there's a good chunk of pro men that are going for the American log press record. And it's going to be a full-on 100. I believe the pro 105 kilogram men are going to put on quite the show, from what I understand. And
sounds like it.
Yeah, he's opened that up internationally as well. So for folks that can get here, it should be an amazing show.
Yeah, I guess I'll reach out to him and see if I can help him promote a little bit, like I did for Mammoth. That sounds like a great show. So, how do people follow you? I guess Instagram's the best way. What's your handle on Instagram?
Yeah, Pro Strongwoman Cori Butler is my Instagram handle. I'm on Facebook as well. I don't do a whole lot of tweeting and such. I need to get better about that. But yeah, Instagram's probably the easiest. That page is public, or Facebook's fine too.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining. I think this was a great conversation. Yeah. My audience is going to love it, and really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You bet. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye. So if you like this video and haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing using that button right there. And also stay tuned for some other videos that you might love blooping up right there. This one is the one that YouTube thinks that you will like the best, and this one is the one that I think you will like the best. As always, share this with everyone, and until next time, ciao, homie.